and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and make them into drinking games. We're your two hosts. I'm Alex.
And I'm Tucker. Today we will be making a drinking game for Halloween 2, made in 1981, directed by Rick Rosenthal, and coming back as writers is both John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. Halloween picks up immediately where the first movie left off. Laurie has just fended off Michael Myers, and Loomis shot him several times, causing him to fall out of the second-story window.
Laurie is paranoid as she gets transported to the hospital as she thinks Michael Myers is still after her. Meanwhile, Loomis is losing his sanity as he starts making more rash or bold decisions in comparison to the first movie. All this leads up to the big reveal about Michael Myers' family.
Now, before we go forward, we are going to warn the people who have not seen the movie yet that there are spoilers ahead. In saying that, if you have not seen the movie, we recommend that you pause the video and watch the movie now with our drinking rules that are posted on screen. With that out of the way, let's dive right in.
The first rule we have for each drinking game is death. If somebody dies, you take a drink. For the second installment of the Halloween franchise, we counted a total of 10 deaths.
The next rule that we will always have here on Cheers to Fears is that if you hear somebody scream, cry, or yell, take a sip. For this movie, we came to the conclusion that there were a total of 17 screams, cries, or yells, which was a fair bit less than we were expecting in all honesty.
Mrs. Elrod? Mr. Elrod? Are you okay?
Now we will move on to the rules that we have exclusively for the Halloween franchise. This list of rules starts with if you hear somebody say Halloween, or it's seen in script, you drink. For this rule, we heard people say Halloween or saw it in text 7 times.
Happy Halloween.
The next rule that we have in place for the Halloween franchise is that if you see a pumpkin, you drink. Considering that this is a movie that takes place one day after Halloween, we did not expect people to take down their decorations yet, so we were expecting a few pumpkins still. We did not anticipate, however, 33 pumpkins being seen, as it surpassed our expectations.
If you spot a person committing a slasher sin, such as doing drugs, consuming alcohol, or having intercourse, you are obliged to take a sip. That is our next rule. For this installment, there was not as many teenagers doing stupid things like the last movie, so the count was relatively low for this rule, as we only counted slasher sins occurring a total of 4 times.
For this rule, you're supposed to take a sip if you hear somebody say Michael or Myers. For the first installment, some people referred to Michael Myers as the boogeyman, but as that does not happen anymore, we removed that part from this rule. For this revised rule, we counted 18 times that we heard people say either one of these 2 words.
Michael?
Speaking of the man himself, if you see Michael Myers on screen, you take a sip. While watching the film, we took note of 13 scenes where we saw the shape.
For our 8th and last rule for the franchise, you must take a sip when you hear the iconic Halloween theme. If you are equally observant as us, you will find yourself taking 6 sips throughout the duration of this movie.
As for our 2 additional rules that are exclusive for each Halloween movie, we did not get off to a good start considering that we copied one of our rules from the first Halloween movie drinking game. That rule is if you hear Loomis talking shit about Michael or warning somebody about him, please take a drink. This rule was mildly effective, as it ended up giving us a total of 8 drinks.
I want to believe you, but I gotta be sure. I can't stop until I'm certain it's dead.
You're talking about him like he's some kind of animal.
Our final rule is similar to the previous one, considering that it not only resulted in 8 drinks, but it also involved Dr. Loomis. If you catch him acting nuts, take a sip.
I have a feeling I'm gonna need you in there. Can I trust you?
What have I got to lose? Except my job.
And that is it for all the rules for the second Halloween movie. The total number of drinks for this movie by our count comes to 124 sips, which is the equivalent of drinking a tad bit over 4 standard 12-ounce cans. That number is based off a 30 sip per can scale.
So yeah, the drinking to this movie compared to the first one, it's relatively the same. I think there's like 6 more drinks in this one. The only difference for this one is there's a lot more pumpkins. It feels like you're just searching for pumpkins the whole movie, because I don't know how, but there ended up being, I think, 13 more in this movie or something crazy like that.
Yeah, there was a lot more anyways.
Anyways, and also deaths were doubled in this one, but aside from that, it was pretty much the same kind of drinking game, well-paced, and it wasn't too hard to drink to overall.
Yeah. So the first thing that we really notice in this movie is how Loomis's personality really changes in this movie.
Oh yeah.
He went from about, like, you could say a 6 in the last movie to probably like a 12. And it only gets higher as the franchise keeps going.
Yeah. Like in the first one, he kind of seems a little bit crazy, but still knowledgeable at least. And for this one, it just got revved up to, like you said, to a 12. And he's just doing a lot of questionable things. Like he sees the kids running out of the building screaming for help, and his first priority is, where's Michael? And he just ignores them.
Yeah, he ignores the kids. Not to mention he's pulling guns on people. He changes from a concerned psychiatrist that relatively seems like he knows what he's doing to Looney Loomis in this movie, full blown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty likely that he has dementia. He seems more old, senile, and making a lot more irrational decisions, such as holding a gun up to the cop's head and demanding that they go turn around, even though there's a court order that they leave the town or whatever. But
yeah. He is quite the character, especially considering that this is literally not even a day apart. It takes place immediately after.
Yeah, it's literally a continuation. And I do want to point out, like, they start from the original movie at the end, and they go on, and it's the same footage, and then it cuts to where he's walking outside, and you can just clearly see how he's aged, because this is like a few years later. 4 years? 3 years. 3 years later. And he put on a little bit of weight, and you can see he's aged, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb the first time I saw it, and I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, they tried at least, but it took me out for that scene a bit.
Yeah, there were some very questionable moments in this installment particularly. So there was the one kid that had a Michael Myers look to him, like with the whole mask and everything like that.
Right.
So he wanted to kill the kid without asking any questions. And then an officer proceeds to mow him down. And that happens to be Ben Tramer, Laurie's crush, you could say, in the first movie.
Yeah.
And I guess it's really certain that she's not going to go with him in the future, especially if he's a charred up corpse.
Well, yeah. Now she doesn't have to call him and cancel the date.
So this is the last time anyone will ever go as Captain Kirk for Halloween, I feel.
Yeah, pretty much.
Especially Ben.
Yep, well, especially Ben. He's not going for anything on Halloween anymore.
Yeah, 6 feet under, I guess.
Yeah.
Continuing on, the cops, I feel like, deal with that situation super poorly. They kill some kid without asking questions, and then meanwhile the sheriff's daughter dies, which, to be fair, I'd be concerned too.
Yeah.
But I think almost all the cops just leave the scene, so they basically commit a murder and just flee the scene of the crime that they commit. So Loomis says how everybody's out of weight because one of their own was killed, which is very confusing. People are consistently hitting the Myers house with rocks and things like that, which, A, I don't think really fixes the problem. B, I don't think any of them were on Michael Myers' side.
No.
And C, I'm pretty sure this entire neighborhood has never heard of broken windows theory, which the theory, if one house in the neighborhood has broken windows or like looks a lot more worn down, a lot of other houses will start to look like that.
Yeah.
So these people are not doing themselves any favors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some of the scenes are just absolute batshit crazy. So how does a nurse forget to call Laurie's parents when the girl in critical condition is just sitting in the hospital?
We'll go get her. She forgot to call Laurie's parents.
Mm-hmm.
And at first glance, it doesn't look like she forgot to call, but she clearly put it off, and then Laurie's parents just moved location to location, and they were just kind of forgot about.
Yeah.
Or I guess they just didn't have a chance to call in time.
I'm trying to reach Mr. or Mrs. Morgan Strode. Could you give me another number? All right. Thank you. You should have called them right away.
And then they end up drugging Laurie, and the moment she starts passing out, the doctors say,
Okay, let's get her clothes off.
which I feel like is the last thing you want anybody to hear when they're passing out.
Yeah, right when you start passing out, telling them to get their clothes off. Yeah, it would weird me out too.
And the one thing that I hate most about this movie is Jimmy.
Yeah.
The new love interest for Laurie, but the creepy shit that he's been doing the entire movie, I would not be comfortable with him at all in my hospital room.
Yeah, well, for some reason though, Laurie finds him charming, and I don't know why, but... So you already mentioned how he's the new love interest, and he should be damn thankful that Ben's not alive anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe Ben would have something to say to him, but yeah, he's lucky in that way.
Yeah, basically his entire shift, he goes into Laurie's room to flirt with her. And not to mention that she is super drugged up at this point.
But yeah.
The nurse multiple times asks him to leave the room, and there's just so many red flags.
Yeah.
No, you won't. Visiting hours are definitely over.
So just carrying on with some of the problems with this movie, like we haven't said enough already, but there was the one scene where the security guard went into the storage room and he was talking on the walkie-talkie or whatever.
That she wasn't taught how to use.
She wasn't taught how to use, yeah. Anyways, he said over the walkie-talkie that somebody broke into the storage room, and that girl kind of hasn't heard from him in 3 hours or whatever, and she's like, oh yeah, well, he said somebody broke in his storage room, but that was 3 hours ago, so if that was the case, obviously he's kind of dead at this point.
Yeah, they're just so senseless at this point in the movie.
A normal person, if they hear that, they're either going to go try and help him or at least tell somebody else that can maybe help.
Yeah. That character, I forgot what her name is though, she had probably one of the better deaths of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Where her face is just kind of shoved in boiling water. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this reminds me of like the liquid nitrogen scene from Jason X.
Yeah, it has similar aspects to it.
Yeah, except in reverse. So maybe they took influence from this.
Maybe, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I agree though that death was pretty cool. Like, I'd say probably the coolest one in this installment. At least.
Definitely.
The effects, even for the time, were pretty well done too. They didn't try to go over the top with it. They made it look like just regular peeling skin, which I feel like was a good way to do that. Anyways, I want to talk about the twist.
That girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister.
I liked the idea that they presented, but I hate the way that they presented it. Yeah. I think it would have worked better. Like, I think that idea would have worked with Laurie being Michael Myers' sister. I feel like that would have been a lot better if we just kind of knew it from the beginning.
Yeah, or like, I guess the one lady who presented the idea to us, if she knew the whole time, came into the pictures, like, we have to get her away from Laurie right now.
Yeah, like, there's better ways to go about presenting that, such a big reveal. And, like, at the same time, it should have been, like, a huge moment in the film, and it kind of just felt like it was said in passing. Like, it wasn't, they didn't drive that point home, they just kind of said it in passing, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a big piece of information we just learned. And
it felt very undermined.
Yeah, it was very underwhelming, and it didn't hit like I think they intended.
Yeah. So continuing on, what were your overall thoughts on the film?
I think you can gather based on what we've said so far, but I didn't like it that much. Like, it was fine for what it was. It felt more like a B movie than anything, and I think the director just tried to copy John Carpenter far too much, and because he was just trying to copy that atmosphere and setting so much, it ended up just falling flat on its face. And even John Carpenter had a problem with it, and he tried to go in basically just ignoring what the original director had done with the movie. John Carpenter went in and added a lot more scenes in and tried to add more gore because he was worried that with the success of Friday the 13th and other slasher flicks that were going on at the time, that this one would just fall flat on its face because of the lack of gore, which was partially what Rick was trying to do to copy the original one. And because of that, it just fell flat on its face. I feel like there were two minds just clashing the whole time, and it was not too special.
Yeah, I also highly agree that a main problem with the movie is the director and writer were not on the same page at all.
Exactly.
Which caused a lot of conflict in the movie and almost made it turn out to be a B movie pretty much.
Yeah.
However, I do want to say that the slapstick or weird scenes that people present themselves, it feels like it's a great movie to drink to, just because it's fun in a sense, where people say so much stupid shit that you're laughing the whole time.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good movie to watch with friends too, if you're drinking to it, which most of the time you're going to be drinking with friends rather than alone, but we won't judge you if you do it alone either. And finally, we come to the award ceremony, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee the Darwin Award. This award goes out to the character who made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, somebody else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have easily been avoided. This award can also be given to a character that's just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is Loomis, for causing the chain of events that killed Ben Tramer. Sure, he wasn't the one that directly killed him, but he definitely got all the cops riled up that resulted in Ben dying.
Our second nomination is Jimmy, for not knowing how to woo a woman. I'm pretty sure he would have been fired and probably locked up in jail.
The next nominee is Mr. Garrett for not relaying the message on how to use the walkie-talkie, which may have helped him not only in terms of communication when he actually wanted to contact the person at the other end, but perhaps he could have helped warn everybody else that Michael Myers is close by.
The final nominee we have is the Marshal for not wanting anybody to use his radio when people are dying. On top of that, he stands beside Michael Myers when Loomis clearly states that he is still alive.
And the winner is Loomis, for being a complete batshit crazy old man throughout the movie that resulted in the death of a teenager.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into Halloween 2. If you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also let us know in the comments what you think the craziest scene in the movie was.
Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode where we are going to be making a drinking game for Halloween 3. Yeah, the one that doesn't have anything to do with Michael Myers. If you want to check out our most recent video on the first Halloween movie, click on the box on the top right. Or if you want to see a playlist of all of our drinking games and movies we review, click on the box below it. Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying,
Cheers to fears.